Since the dawn of human civilization, solar eclipses have been sources of awe, wonder, and fascination for our ancient ancestors. As we watch the sun disappear from the sky during totality, our minds race to attribute meaning and make sense of this incredible celestial phenomenon. Over the centuries, this sense of awe developed into various myths, superstitions, and misconceptions about the causes and effects of solar eclipses. Today, armed with the scientific knowledge accumulated over generations, we can look back at these ancient beliefs and separate fact from fiction. Let's dive into some of the most prevalent and persistent myths surrounding solar eclipses. So let's have a look into this. You're watching Lecture It. For our prehistoric ancestors, the sun's disappearance and the ethereal solar corona must have seemed like an ominous, potentially dangerous event. However, scientists have studied the coronal light for centuries and found it to be over 1,000,000 times fainter than the brilliant light from the sun itself. During totality, when the moon fully eclipses the sun, the corona emits only electromagnetic radiation at very low intensity levels. There is simply nothing in this faint coronal output that could possibly travel the vast distance of 150 million kilometers, pierce our protective atmosphere, and cause blindness or any other harm. The only risk is if you look directly at the sun before or after totality. That intense brightness can indeed damage your eyes. But the eclipse itself poses no such dangers from any special eclipse rays. This myth stems from the previous false belief about harmful radiations being produced during an eclipse. But the scientific reality is quite different. The only radiation from the sun reaching us during an eclipse are neutrinos, tiny, virtually massless particles created in the sun's core during nuclear fusion. Every second, trillions upon trillions of neutrinos pass through the Earth, Moon, and each of our bodies completely unimpeded. While neutrinos can very occasionally interact and transmute atoms they encounter, this effect is negligible and perfectly harmless for you or a developing fetus. There is absolutely no risk posed by neutrinos from observing a solar eclipse during pregnancy. This myth can be firmly put to rest. Perhaps one of the most pervasive myths, many ancient cultures seriously believed that solar eclipses would contaminate and spoil any crops, meals, or drinking water exposed during the event. Of course, we understand today that this belief has no basis in scientific reality whatsoever. Solar eclipses do not create any special form of radiation, particles, or emanations that could possibly poison or spoil food in any way, shape, or form. If your potato salad happened to go bad around the time of an eclipse, it was simply an unfortunate coincidence having nothing to do with the celestial mechanics playing out. Whether a cosmic dance blocks out the sun for a few minutes or not, the same laws of physics, chemistry, and microbiology govern the world of food safety. This myth was simply born out of our ancestors' fears of the unknown. For ancient civilizations, eclipses seemed to be such frighteningly abnormal events that it made sense to interpret them as ominous warning signs about upcoming calamity. Certainly, many early historical records document the simultaneous occurrence of an eclipse alongside some unrelated conflict, insurrection, or death of a ruler. However, this is a classic case of what psychologists call confirmation bias, our tendency to latch onto patterns that confirm our preconceived notions while ignoring all the times those patterns didn't play out. The truth is, there are plenty of historical events that happened without any nearby eclipse as well. Rather than an eclipse causing or warning about future events, The human mind simply took notice when the two merely coincided, creating a misconception about their relationship. In reality, eclipses are independent, predictable celestial events that have nothing to do with terrestrial happenings. Many people assume there must be something special or different about the Earth's poles that prevents total eclipses from occurring in those locations. But from an astronomical perspective, the poles are no more unique than any other place on our planet's surface when it comes to eclipses. The last total solar eclipse visible from the North Pole area happened quite recently on March 20th, 2015, with the path of totality passing directly over the North Pole itself at the vernal equinox. And the South Pole region got its most recent glimpse of totality on November 23, 2003. The celestial mechanics that bring the Sun, Moon, and Earth into perfect alignment have nothing to do with latitude. Eclipses can be experienced from any position on the globe given the right conditions. The poles are not excluded from this phenomenon by any means. A reasonable assumption, perhaps, but it turns out the lunar surface does not actually go completely dark and black during the total phase of a solar eclipse. If you look closely, the moon will appear as more of a dim, milky white disk rather than being totally obscured. This glow comes from the phenomenon of earthshine, sunlight reflected off the bright Earth and onto the moon's surface. Since the side of the Earth facing the moon during totality is completely illuminated by the sun, that reflected light provides a dull illumination of the lunar disk. So while the moon appears quite dark compared to its normal brilliant illumination, we can still make out a ghostly outline due to the reflected glare from our home planet. This eerie glow helped dispel the myth of absolute blackness. A common refrain you'll see, especially in astrological forecasts and New Age predictions, is the claim that eclipses open a cosmic window and herald major life events, relationships changes, or upheavals on a personal level. If an eclipse doesn't directly affect you, they'll claim it may still augur shifts for people you know. However, this is an example of shaky logic based on the flawed notion of confirmation bias I mentioned earlier. Those making such claims tend to focus only on the occasions when life events seem to coincide with an eclipse, while completely disregarding all the times when nothing changed after an eclipse. There is simply no scientifically plausible mechanism by which the periodic alignment of the Sun, Moon, and Earth could influence happenings in your personal life or relationships through some sort of cosmic cause and effect. These predictions rely entirely on selectively remembering coincidences. When you see the sun's disk being taken over by the jet black sphere of the moon, it certainly feels like you are witnessing a once-in-a-lifetime cosmic spectacle. And for many people, total solar eclipse is one of the most incredible natural events they'll ever get to experience. However, the reality is that eclipses are not at all rare or abnormal from an astronomical perspective. They are merely the results of the precise, predictable clockwork motions of the celestial bodies mapped out by Newton's laws over 300 years ago. In fact, eclipses of one kind or another happen somewhere on Earth's surface around once every 18 months like clockwork. Total solar eclipses occur a bit less frequently, around once every 18 months to 3 years or so, but you can set your calendar by their regularity across the decades. In some astrological traditions and almanacs, you may see warnings that if a solar eclipse happens close to your birthday in any given year, this could portend declining health, illness, or other physical troubles on the horizon for you. Some beliefs hold that this effect can linger for up to 6 months after that fated date. Once again, however, There is absolutely no scientific basis or causal mechanism that could link the chance timing of your birthday in relation to an eclipse with your overall physiological well-being and health going forward. Just as the movements of celestial bodies cannot influence relationships or life events on Earth, they certainly have no direct effect on the proper biological functioning of the human body and all its interdependent systems. Any perceived correlations between eclipses and health issues are nothing more than random coincidences that are highlighted by confirmation bias. At the end of the day, while eclipses were once understandably shrouded in myth and superstition due to our ancestors' lack of scientific understanding, we can now fully appreciate them as awe-inspiring manifestations of the laws of physics and gravity that govern our entire universe. Rather than being causes for fear or false interpretations, we can celebrate eclipses as reminders of the sublime cosmic choreography unfolding all around us.